welcome to Daybreak Live on Dominion Television, Ibadan. I am Anu Oluwapo Idu.
And I'm Oluwayemi Adelakun. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Now, political friction and national security intersect sharply this morning as Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi strongly criticizes President Bola Tinubu for failing to contact Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde for over 50 days following the mass abduction of school children in the state.
The public criticism has ignited intense conversations surrounding intergovernmental cooperation, federal synergy and the urgency of top-level response mechanisms during severe security crisis when partisan boundaries or communication gaps delay critical security interventions. How does it affect local rescue operations, and what does this administrative silence say about the federal government's accountability to state facing immediate security emergencies? That is our Daybreak gist this morning.
And in a short while, we'll take you through the newspaper headlines where today's front pages capture the stories driving conversations across politics, security, education, governance, and the economy. We'll also examine the major headlines and the issues making the biggest impact across the country today.
And later on the program, our big story turns to a systemic emergency that threatens the very foundation of our national development and future stability. Our topic is the out-of-school children crisis, which is failing Nigeria's future. With millions of Nigerian children currently outside the formal education system, the compounding pressures of insecurity, poverty, and institutional decay are pushing a generation into vulnerability.
So while policy frameworks are frequently introduced, the practical implementation of on-the-ground reveals deep gaps between governance, mandates, and societal realities. So who holds the primary responsibility for reversing this trend? The federal infrastructure, state authorities, or local communities? What structural overhauls are urgently required to safeguard the right of every Nigerian child to secure a standard education? Joining us to explore these questions is Comrade Oluwakemi Ademola Muketi, human rights activist and lecturer at the University of Ibadan.
And before we leave you this morning, we'll revisit some of the stories, reactions, and conversations continuing to attract attention across the country.
Yeah, the true strength of a nation is seen in how it protects its most vulnerable. Education is not a luxury. It is the ultimate shield against insecurity and the only path to sustainable growth.
And this morning we examine both the institutional failures and the structural solutions. Welcome to Daybreak Live.
Right. Good morning to you this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Anne. And just like we said in the intro, we are looking at the statement of the not the former now. Yeah, it was the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, now the presidential candidate of NDC, that's Peter Obi, who alleged that up until now, the president is here to give Governor Seyi Makinde a call. And then, you know, when someone like Peter Obi decide to say something like that, he's popular, he has the supporters, there will definitely be people who agree with him and people who don't. But I remember that a few weeks back, I think it was a weekend like that, Governor Seyi Makinde visited the scene, the community where it happened. And I remember that the husband of the principal in abduction was there as well. And then at some point he was talking and he could not hold it any longer. He busted into tears and the governor had to pat him on the back and things like that. And there was also an elderly woman who complained about 3 of her grandchildren in abduction as well. And I remember shortly after that, the presidency also sent a delegate to that scene, to the community as well. And then so many persons were asking questions. Why is it that, you know, the presidency is just sending delegate? Why is it that the governor just visited that scene or that community today? I mean, that day when it happened. And then away from that, for people who agree with Peter Obi, they're asking questions. That why is it that there's no synergy between the presidency and the state government? You know, speaking about Makinde, and Peter Obi also made reference to the fact that when the Chibok situation happened, you know, the current president, our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was part of those who criticized the former president, that's Goodluck Jonathan, that, you know, he did not communicate with the governor of that state, you know, during that period. And so he's saying that why is it so difficult for him to actually reach out to the governor, ask him questions and things like that. And then for people who do not agree with Peter Obi, they're asking questions. Is it possible that the governor did not even brief the president about what happened? So we are talking about people who who are for that statement and people who are not for that statement. But then beyond all of this, I think what we need is synergy between the presidency and the state government. Because I remember it did not even, this lack of synergy between the state government and the presidency did not start with the abduction of the girls. I remember there was a media chat in Ibadan last December, and then the governor said a lot. He mentioned, oh, I supported the president in the last election, I'm not willing to support him. It's quite obvious that something went wrong. They used to have a very good relationship, but really cannot tell what happened. So this is the conversation this morning. We really should not be going back and forth. Oh, the governor did not brief the president did not call. It's been 51 days after the abduction. Can we talk about rescuing these people? Because beyond all of this argument, the most important thing is to get these people out of the den of the kidnappers, basically.
Yeah, I think you've made valid points, and I think it's also good to look at it from different lenses. One lens that is common in this conversation will be the political lens. How do you view this? You view this through the political lens. And when you do that, the first thing that comes to mind is because the incumbent administration in Oyo State is a PDP governor, and the incumbent administration at the federal level is an APC government. Definitely, they might not be in touch as much as they should, which is not making an excuse for them, because that is institutionally wrong. If there's no synergy, like I said, if there's no coordination, if there's no communication between them, especially in times when they need to communicate. And so that's a conversation, that's a problem we have on our hands. But again, maybe just to move it away from there, and I'm not speaking in proxy, I'm not holding brief for the president, but one thing is sure, that the Nigerian Constitution does not prescribe that the president must contact the state governor within a specified time after a security collapse. There's nowhere in the Constitution that is written that there has to be that form of communication between the president straight down to the governor. However, it is expedient for anybody at the presidential level to speak to a state coordinator, which is in this case a governor, directly when there are cases of insecurity, especially beyond the capacity of the state. So I think it is very important that we state that, yes, although the Constitution does not say that you must speak within a specified time to the governor, common sense will tell us that there should be a working relationship, a working communication channel between the two. Because even if the president is not willing to speak about it, why don't the governor also make an attempt to say, oh, hello, sir, there's something like that? Because remember the case of the explosion in Bodija. It was said that the governor at the time spoke to the president. So it wasn't really a thing of, I'm expecting him to talk to me. It was a thing that, yeah, this is a national disaster. I'm going to speak to the president about this. And then they had conversations about, wow, maybe 50 million or 30 billion, whatever amount they were fighting about. But that's not even the conversation is, was there a communication that was established when that happened? Yes. Should there be a communication that should be established when something like this happened? Yes. But what is the case? Maybe politics. And that would mean that ever since this incumbent governor of Oyo State said he was going to become president, I think he ruffled feathers. I think he raised dust. I think he troubled waters, and so those people were not willing to just let it go. That's why it's so easy to look at this conversation from the lens of politics, that this is all political. He probably doesn't want to have anything to do with Sheyi. I'm talking about President Tinubu. He doesn't want to have anything to talk to him about, and he feels like maybe you run it through other channels, because after Sheyi's visitation, just about some hours after, a high-level delegation came from the federal level as well to the state, to Orire local government, and that was also a conversation. But again, Peter Obi's claim is actually a good one, because he's also experienced. Remember when he was a governor in his state, he made references to when the president at the time was trying to have conversations. Like, they had constant communication. It wasn't a thing of, oh yeah, because you don't belong to my party, because you don't belong to the interest group that I belong to, then we will not talk. So it wasn't a thing of that. It was a thing of the established communication, even though they might not agree on the same things or many factors or many decisions in the country. But again, I think it's made a good call, and I think this call, if anybody were to make it, should be the opposition, which I think is one of the ways we can improve any government. To improve a government, we need the opposition to play the party politics, and the opposition politics I meant to say, and to play it right, to call them to order, to speak truth to power, to question authorities, to say, you guys are not accountable in this way. can we call you to accountability? Can you do things right? If you have not spoken to somebody in 50 days or 51 days, it shows that whatever the case is, whether or not you think you don't agree with them politically, it shows that you don't really care about the people that the person is also serving, because it is not about the interest of that person or your interest. It is now about the people you people are serving. And if I think we kind of overflog it, or sometimes it sounds like we are beating a dead horse, because our politicians don't know that they are serving the people. And if you are a leader is first a servant, and by that it means that regardless of your preferences, your interests, and what is at stake for you as a person, the first thought, the first priority, the first prerequisite to doing anything or making a decision should be the people. Your responsibility should be to the people. Your interest should be to the people you govern. And if you don't do that, then you fail to stand in that role. You fail to be called a leader. A leader first looks at the people he's serving and then helps them beyond political interest, beyond preferences. And that's what I'm saying, that of course he might as well say, well, he must have communicated through some channels, but we're also expecting that the president, because we know from time immemorial, if a president comes to speak over an issue, then there's a bit of calm. People get to know that, oh yes, the president is aware, the president is trying to work, because we know that's the highest power when it comes to the nation. So if we have the highest power overlooking the affairs of our state or nation, then it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. And it's not even just to Sheyi Makinde now, it's also to the people of your state and the generality of the Nigerian people. Well, I also say that historically, this might not have been the case for many presidents. Talking about President Olusegun Obasanjo, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, and Goodluck Jonathan, I think they've had cases where they directly, in no time, communicated. And I think if you, like you said, that Tinubu once said that if a president is not communicating, especially over the Chibok issue, and then maybe we should call the president to remember his words, that you once said these things. And I think it's a good thing to also do what you say, not just say the things you think is right, but also do the right things that you say. And I think that's integrity. But again, I would like to say that the speed of response is something that would invest what we call public confidence in any government institution. If there's a response to situations and it's very rapt, it's very urgent, it's very concise, I mean it makes a lot of sense to people. And again, if it will improve what we call intergovernmental coordination as well as visible leadership. So if there's no leadership and there's no coordination between leadership structures and party lines and leadership lines in the country, sometimes I wonder where we are going, because the road is not looking clear for the country. If we can say, because of politics I'm not speaking to Peter Obi, because of politics I'm not speaking to this person, when there's a crisis in the state, I'm afraid we are headed towards a nosedive.
Exactly. I think you've made a very valid point, and then we should not lose focus, which is ensuring that we get the children out of the den of the kidnappers. And then it's a fine place to leave this discussion this morning. I want to believe that the necessary authorities, will make sense of this argument, not just argue, but then find solutions to the problem. We take a short break, and when we come back, we move on to newspaper headlines and analysis. We'll be right back.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at DominionCast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
Live from the heart of the action. Welcome to the nerve center of Next Level Broadcasting.
This is the OB van, where the studio meets the street.
Equipped with cutting-edge cameras, crystal clear audio, real-time switching, and broadcast control, we don't just capture moments, we deliver the experience live.
Anywhere, anytime, from stadiums to red carpets, breaking news to buzzing festivals, weddings, birthdays, and all sorts of ceremonies. We bring the world to your screen in real time.
It's not just a van, it's a complete mobile production house, a command center, a broadcast beast.
This is more than a broadcast. This is the OB van difference. Live, loud, limitless.
Ready to go live? Like never before. Book the OB van today and take your event to the world. One powerful broadcast at a time.
To book, call 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Email marketing@dominion.org.ng or visit our socials on Instagram at Dominion Broadcast.
Dominion Broadcast, your channel of choice.
Need a professional space to bring your vision to life? Dominion Television Studios offers state-of-the-art facilities perfect for your next broadcast, commercial, corporate video, or live event. With flexible rental options, cutting-edge equipment, and a supportive team, we provide the perfect environment for high-quality productions. Unleash your creativity. For bookings, email us at marketing@dominion.org.ng. Call us on 0705 506 1061 or 0916 101 1061. Check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Dominion Broadcast and on X at DominionCast. Book your space today. Dominion Television, your channel of choice.
future of a nation is not built in its parliament alone, but first in its classrooms. Good morning. Once again, I welcome to the big story. I'm Oluwayemi Adelako. Nigeria is home to one of the largest populations of out-of-school children in the world. UNICEF estimates that about 10.5 million children aged 5 to 14 are currently out of school, while UNESCO data continues to show that Nigeria carries a disproportionately large share of the global education crisis. Beyond the numbers lie shattered dreams, rising poverty, insecurity, child labor, early marriage, and a generation at risk of being left behind. And today we ask a difficult but necessary question. Who is failing Nigeria's future? Is it government, the parents, communities, insecurity, poverty, or all of the above? And to help us unpack this national challenge is Comrade Oluwakemi Ademola Mukete, human rights activist and lecturer at the University of Ibadan. Welcome on board, Comrade.
Thank you. Good morning. It's so good to be with you this morning.
Exactly. We're happy to have you once again. Okay, let's start this way, Comrade. Who is responsible for what is going on? Who is failing Nigeria? Some argue, oh, it's the government. The schools are not okay, the teachers are not available. And some say it's the parents. They want their children to work, to do all sorts and not go to school. And some say it's the children themselves. Who is failing Nigeria?
All of us. And we say all of us because we are yet to really articulate the value of a human being in Nigeria. We think that there's a class war, so if they get up there, they'll argue with me, we don't want feedback. You know that the essence of education is to cultivate the mind of the human being. You would really grow to your normal height. God forbid terrible diseases, debilitating diseases as a child, but usually your phenotypic features are your features. You would grow to that height. But the engine that drives the man is the mind of the man. So your ability to understand will depend on how many minds you're exposed to. So education is really a tool for problem solving. It is a tool for cultivating the mind so that you know the difference between superstition and reality. So that you're able to tell the difference between a lie, So you can no longer be a tool of another man, a willing tool. You could be criminally minded, education does not stop that. But you would know, you'll be rational. You would know that, okay, if I'm taking this path, these are the possible consequences of such path. So it is all of us. Because I recall the time when there used to be many community activities struggling. People determined we must have a primary school in our own community, We must have a secondary school in our, and they call them community grammar schools. That means the community. And so many parents will say, I didn't go to school, but my child must go. Now, when you think of education as a means of transition, instead of a means of cultivating the mind, know there are differences. Because if you think, okay, if you went to school, you would have a piece of paper called a certificate that says you've been through this night, then you have an advantage over others. Then that's not the proper, attitude to knowledge. Right. Knowledge is supposed, going to school does not present just with learning. It provides you the opportunity to develop your aptitude. So aptitude is the goal of education. That means your ability to reason, to think, to learning to read and write. You not choose what to read or write. What you read is what builds you. What you write is what builds future generations. And people that write don't die. That's the thing. We still quote men. Those ones that were able to pen down their thoughts. So for you to have the confidence to pen down your thoughts, you must know what other minds think about. And what we call the development of humanity today is the contribution of every one single person that had a mind of his own. So we do ourselves a disservice when we don't allow children to go to school.
What about the parent? Let's talk about this case. I don't know whether you remember the Ochanya case.
Yeah.
I mean, our mom had to transfer to a relative because there was no school in our community. And then, you know how it ended. She lost her life. And then, do you think that situation has worsened, the out-of-school children, the numbers that we have in Nigeria?
The people discussing whether education is good or not are the poor. You don't have any rich person wondering if education is good or not. And that is why education will be at a price. Yes, you must fight to make sure your children go to school. However, thinking another man will send them. You see where poverty comes in now.
Okay.
When you're thinking, my brother will take care of the person. No, that would be a maid plus. There will be double burden on that child. The child will not be able to sit down and dedicate the time that is necessary to cultivate the mind. Look, going to school is beyond just attending classes, appearing in a classroom. It is the ability to sit back, internalize information, and reflect on information, and develop a conscience that is able to judge. That is a lot of process. That is why the way we learn in school is incremental. That means you're first introduced to addition, recognition, 1, A, B, C. Then you now move to operations of the words, 2-letter words, 3-letter, you begin to go into operations. Then later you get to the technicalities. So it's incremental. So that is why everybody must fight to get their mind properly cultivated. Because some people think, just go to the school, then any certificate, you come and be doing vocational training. I don't know. There are different skill sets for such. Going to school does not stop vocational learning. Vocational learning is what we used to call holiday activities. When you're on halls, you would learn one activity or the other, home training, all those things are going on. But Nigeria as a nation is yet to understand that every human being is valuable. I see that everywhere. Some people think their lives are more important than other people's lives, So that is the attitude. That's why I say it's everybody's problem. It's all of us. It's all of us not understanding that you cannot leave any child behind. No child. Because you are not, there's something I always say too, and I will say it openly. Now, what happens is that when we cry to God and say, our maker, we have this need, he sends a baby. So if the society is not ready to receive the baby, and the society is not ready to cultivate the baby, and then develop him into a responsible man, then you'd have a group of people that see an ellipse of the sun or the moon and think it is because of people's sin. Yeah, that is what you have. You have a situation where somebody says, go and cut people's head, and they go ahead and do it. Thinking, really, you really wonder what kind of depravity would create a mind that would be willing to slaughter. It's lack of proper information, deception, believing a lie, not having access to rational reasoning. Even for those of us that went to school quite early as can be, you already knew 1 + 1 could be, when they mark your paper, 1 + 1 should be 2. If you didn't write your 1 well and it looks like 7, you missed it. That's already teaching you critical reasoning. That there's a way I do it that is right. There's another way I would do it that would be wrong. If it is right, there's a applaud. If it is wrong, there's a consequence. So that teaches you very early that there are consequences. So that's why I said education is to develop your aptitude. It is to groom the whole man. It is a very complex system.
Speaking about consequences now, there are certain parents who believe that the children should go and work to support the family. They simply do not believe in education, and then you see them on the street. Do you think they should face legal consequences?
No. I don't think those parents think education is not important.
But
they have looked at their resources and have observed that there is no way we're going to be able to fund this education to an appreciable level. Education is strange. If you get partially educated, you're terrible. I keep saying that we have literates and illiterate and illiterates. Okay, the literate man is a man that is capable of reasoning. An illiterate man is, for example, a governor that will embezzle the money of the state. Is that man educated? He's not. Do you get what I'm trying to say? If you're educated, it will influence behavior. So if you're not properly educated, it will reflect in how you misbehave. Okay? That means you don't understand that the essence of life is the quality. All of us can have, there's not enough for everybody's greed, but there's enough for everybody's need. So if you are properly trained, educated, you would understand that when they are at peace, you're also at peace. You will understand that the social class issue is not a social class war, you will understand that even in slavery, the slaves were given food. Yeah, so that they will be healthy.
And can walk properly.
That's an extreme. Okay, to tell you that they knew enough to know that, look, if you don't feed them, they will die. So when you have a nation where more than 1/3 of the nation is abject poverty, what kind of nation is that one? It's a nation that has no understanding of what it means to be a human being. Look, and I'm so grateful to God. He has never left the goodness to the upper class. Okay? Every time there's somebody from that lower class that breaks through the ranks, it's almost like every 4th generation. You would have somebody exceptionally beautiful child that gets into the upper class because of the beauty, very, very fast child. Highly talented people comes up. And look, if every human being is properly cultivated, all our needs will be met. Yes, because you have them performing their duty in the society. So it's everybody's fault.
Okay, let's talk about early marriage now. Some scholars have argued that early marriage, have worsened the situation as well, because we see videos online, a 14-year-old getting married, some had to drop out of school because their parents want to marry them off, just to maintain maybe the relationship between the other family, or just for some gain. Or what do you make of that?
That's a very deep one. I'll explain it this way. The rich are also involved in arranging marriages to maintain their wealth and power.
Or is it early?
I've actually witnessed a wedding where a 17-year-old girl was given the same day as a 30-year-old sister. Okay, depending on the mothers. So I'm saying that these interest-based family relationships can never be thrown aside. However, when you see very young children getting married, it's based on religious beliefs or traditional tendencies. So a situation where you see the girl child as somebody that will bring money home. Okay, when she's getting married, we're going to collect a lot of money as bride price. Then the man that buys her thinks he owns her. That's what is happening. So it is that's why I said the essence of education is to cultivate the mind. So you get to know that human beings are not for sale. There was a time when women were treated all over the world as properties. Even now, in a patriarchal system like Nigeria, some men really think they own the women. Sometimes when men are talking, I'll be thinking, where is the power emanating from? So early marriage can be because the parents are poor. So they are negotiating. They know that we cannot take care of this child. Do you get it? People even sell babies in Nigeria, don't they? We've heard all of that in news. It's when you are in a desperate situation and that is where the government now comes in. If government makes school free, are they going to feed the children free too? Ask yourself that question. The children still have to be accommodated. All of the need of a child is not going to school. So that is why Nigeria must engage its people, employ them in gainful nation building processes, then also take care of children. So now when you are at the whims and caprices of your family, who are very poor, what will they do with you? Okay, and then when the biological clock come ticking, the girls go prostituting. Is that a lie? So it's a whole plethora of failure of the state. If the state really is futuristic, understands that every human being is important, they will create a system where everybody just goes into the setting, into the process, and then they emerge as responsible citizens. Why are we really going to school?
Is the society also at fault? And this is why I'm asking that question. In some communities, even till this morning, they believe that it is better to send a boy to school than train a girl, and spend a lot on the girl. How do we address that? I mean, it's a societal problem.
See, human beings are products of experiences. Think about it. If you're thinking, I want a legacy, and it's the man that bears the name of the family, there will be the tendency to take care of the man.
But we have women who still...
The government of Nigeria can do more. They should create a system where it is illegal not to send a child to school. Because that child you're not grooming is going to be a wild